Today we're going to talk about user-centered design, which is a method of creating a solution that focuses on the needs, behavior, and preferences of the individuals that are actually going to use or implement that solution. Using this process in the impact space is a little different because you are not only going to be focusing on the needs and preferences of your users, you also need to bear in mind your own mission. Right? So you kind of think of it as a Venn diagram between the needs and preferences of your users and what among those needs and preferences is consistent with your mission and the work that your organization wants to do. So we are going to do a client case study, which is about how the Washington State Democratic Party took their own mission of having a diverse state slate of candidates from across the state and used that mission to guide them in getting user feedback from potential candidates to create a tool, which is a campaign planning guide, that would help those candidates succeed. So let's switch over to that case study. I'm with my friend Dylan Cate, who was previously, say your title.
The Director of Organizing and Strategic Campaigns for the Washington State Democrats.
Beautiful, thank you. Dylan's project was one of the first client projects that DoBigGood did, so very excited. Can you start by telling us the inspiration for starting Rise and Run?
So the inspiration for this program was the need to have candidates running in every part of the state. And as we entered 2018, we realized that there were big chunks of the state where we didn't have any Democratic candidates. I realized that we really needed a better way to build a bench of candidates who not only were willing to run for higher office, but who we had been cultivating and preparing to be successful.
One of the first things that you did was that you tried to get input from candidates, right? You didn't try to figure out, let me guess what they need. You said, let me actually talk to candidates and find out what they need. And so tell me just how you did that in a practical way, getting that input.
Yeah, so once we had all these people who we had basically talked into running for office, I started doing check-in calls with them to understand how things were going on their campaign and what their needs were. And so I built a list of 10 or 12 candidates who were geographically diverse, who represented and tried to get a really broad perspective from as many people facing different situations. So I called, 10 or 12 candidates and checked in with them about what was going on in their race, what were the biggest problems they were facing, and what were their biggest needs. And from that sort of created the almost the requirements or the specifications for the program that we were going to develop to try to support them.
So what did you learn when you had those phone conversations? What were the kind of needs, or what was the situation? What were the challenges of those candidates?
Yeah, so most of the candidates, in my honest assessment, were in a state of panic when I checked in on them 2 months into their campaign. And I kept hearing over and over, I have a full-time job, I have kids, so I have 2 hours every night in which I get to do this campaign work. And when I sit down and I finally have those 2 hours, I don't know whether I should be calling potential donors to ask for money, whether I should be knocking on doors to talk to voters, whether I should be at my local Democratic Party meeting, whether I should be at the local union hall or the local Planned Parenthood trying to get an endorsement. I just don't know how to spend my time. And candidates were building up this sense of anxiety and almost fear of missing out, that they weren't doing the right thing with their limited time. And I sort of realized that, that's what it feels like to work without a plan. So the first product that we decided we would develop is helping candidates build a plan. Candidates who had never seen a campaign plan, had never volunteered on a campaign. How do we support these folks in building a viable campaign plan that then they can turn to when they have those 2 hours and they can understand what is the highest and best use of my time right now?
Yeah, so you started off with a problem that you noticed by doing this cold calling. And then you said, well, I've identified a problem, but I'm not exactly sure how to solve it or what the exact nature of the problem is. So you talk to people who actually have the problem, and you realize from that, okay, I think what they need to solve this problem is a campaign plan. So then you did what we call in the tech space, you created a minimum viable product, which is the first super basic, super cheap version of your solution that you basically created to get feedback from candidates. So could you just describe what that MVP
Yeah, so we essentially try to recreate the experience of sitting down with someone who knew how to build a campaign plan, who would be asking you questions about your campaign and race, but we wanted that to be accessible to people at a much bigger scale and at any time of day or night. So we created a Google form. Instead of having me sitting there asking people questions about their race, we had a Google form that asked a series of questions about every aspect of running for office.
And then I encouraged Dylan to, that he needed to test this MVB. Actually, you need to send it to candidates. What kind of feedback did you get?
So the number one feedback that we got from people was that this was a really heavy campaign plan tool, that it was going to take too much time, and for the candidates that they were working with, it was going to be overwhelming. And we knew that we needed to create a light version. So I switched platforms away from Google Forms and used something else.
So you made a technical change based on feedback
Yeah.
to make it easier for people to